Conversations with Nicole. Let's talk about it. Tell me all about it. I'm here. I wanna know what's on your mind. Ooh, the world needs to hear from you, and I'm so glad to have a conversation to reach the nation. And it's all about you. We'll help each other to discover innovative ways to positively change the world. Let's talk about. Let's talk about. Let's talk about conversations with Nicole.
Greetings. Happy Monday. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am Nicole Everett, your host. And Conversations with Nicole is a talk show based in Tallahassee, Florida, focused on connecting the community through conversations. And today is what I call Mindset Monday, which is an opportunity for you, me, and my guests to talk about something interesting and intriguing. And so today, my very special guest is Mr. Tillman, who is a clinician here in Tallahassee, and we are going to explore the topic of vulnerability and processing through adversity. Vulnerability and processing through adversity. But before I bring him on, I want to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? We are live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on LinkedIn, and this is an interactive conversation. Your comments and questions are very much so welcome. So tag a friend, like, share, tag, let them know they need to be on here. Happy Black History Month to you all. Happy February. Can you believe we're in the second month of 2025 already? January seemed to just fly right on by. Between the snow here in Tallahassee and the new leadership of the country and all of the things happening. I mean, time just, again, seems to be just flying by. But we are glad to be here and glad to have you all with us tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and share some of Aaron's bio. Aaron Tillman is an award-winning higher education professional and with extensive experience in counseling, academic advising, student athletic development, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI, that's right, I said it. Initiatives. He is a native of Colorado Springs and holds a bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism from the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, Go Rattlers, where he participated in the March of 100 and began his career as an athletic academic advisor. He holds a master's degree in counseling and human systems from FSU, Go Noles, and is currently the owner of Inspire Hope Collective LLC, providing counseling support to young adults and the greater community of Tallahassee. He was instrumental in the holistic development of student athletes as the assistant director at student athlete development, where he focused on mental health leadership and providing multicultural competence workshops to student athletes in various departments. He has been featured on NPR, numerous sports and leadership podcasts, Instagram's Historically Black Sense, and held numerous leadership roles such as FSU's Athletics Chief Diversity Officer, currently serving as DEI Division Director on the Board of Directors for the National Association of Academic and Student Athlete Development Professionals. That is a mouthful right there. He has facilitated various workshops and summits on cultural competency and student athlete support, and his work has been recognized through several awards, including the N4A Professional Excellence Award and a lot of other accolades. I'm not even going to read all of this. But he is married. He's married to his college sweetheart, Stephanie. And they got married in 2012 and has a son named AJ. Y'all help me welcome Mr. Aaron Tillman.
Hey, Nicole. Hey.
Hey.
I love it. Oh, my goodness.
Welcome.
Appreciate you having me. This is Awesome. I love your theme song as well too. I was back there just
I
a
know.
little.
Come up with a line dance for my theme song. It's so good. Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So, y'all, I met Aaron on, well, I saw him on Psychology Today, and I reached out and was like, "Hey, I need to get to know you." And so we had a talk at the beginning of the year, and he was like, "Yeah, I would love to come on the show." And so it was so cool. So we've not met in person. We've had some preliminary conversation, and he's a really cool dude. So super glad that you are here. So, Aaron, tell the people, who is Aaron Tillman? Not what you do, because I just read all of that, but who is Aaron Tillman in your own words?
I am a person who loves to put myself in positions of like learning about others. So say I'm a learner more than anything. I love to learn about people, put myself in positions where I'm in diverse communities. I'm a lot of fun. I love to laugh. I love to travel. I love to just be able to learn about different things to grow. I'm a person who just is all about growth. So whenever I can put myself in a place where I'm uncomfortable, where I'm learning about something or somebody else, that's what I would say that I love to do. I just like a lot of fun as well too. So between music, dancing, you put the right thing on, and I'll be there. Yeah.
Nice. Well, again, really glad that you're here. And I think I may have mentioned to you when we first talked that Black male counselors are like unicorns, right?
Mhm.
So you all are like diamonds in the rough. And so we gotta hold on to y'all. Encourage y'all to keep doing the work. Help the brothers out, all right? Help the brothers
Appreciate
out.
that, Nicole.
Yeah.
It's definitely scarce when it comes to Black male mental health counselors. Yeah,
Mhm.
we're looking at probably 7 to 9%, I think now, and it is slowly going up, but it's still something we got to work at.
Absolutely. So definitely appreciate you. So tell us a little bit about your practice and kind of where you are and if you accept the new clients and just give us a little overview.
Absolutely. So I'm the owner of Inspire Hope Collective. I started my practice back in November after working at FSU some time with student athletes and the regular population, and really had a heart to just transition into a place where I could serve marginalized populations. I think counseling for myself has been such an integral role, but something that hasn't been elevated high enough. And I was thinking, how can I provide access to services for those that look like me, but also destigmatize this reality that counseling is? I think a lot of people want counseling, but a lot of people don't know how to approach it or how to even look for it, or what I should be doing. Some people might say, oh, I'm going through some things, I'm having some trouble, I've been through some adversity, I feel like I need to seek a counselor. But I think the other reality that sometimes isn't talked about is having a place where you can just process. And it may not necessarily be a negative experience. It may be something that you just need to process that happened and you don't realize the residual trauma that it may have caused and why it makes you behave or act or have a certain attitude in a specific way. So I think about that, and that was really the reason as to why I opened my practice. I wanted to be able to provide a space where Black people and others that are marginalized could have a space. Although I serve all clientele, and I am also looking to build my clientele if any of those out there are seeking a counselor that focuses on cultural competence,
Yeah.
but really just to be able to provide that access.
Nice. And so tell us what your designation is in terms
Yes.
of counseling. Yes.
Yes, so I am currently a private practice therapist. I'm working toward getting fully licensed. A lot of my areas that I focus in are anxiety, depression. I work with clients who have eating disorders, body image, but also just identity. And I think that that's one of the bigger ones is we don't get a chance to learn about or talk through our intersectional identity and how that impacts how we interact on a daily basis. So those are some of the areas that I focus on in
Okay.
my practice.
Good deal. And so are you taking new clients at this time?
I am taking new clients at this time. You can find me on Psychology Today. I also can be booked through my website, inspirehopecollective.com.
All right. And insurance or private pay?
Private pay, considering insurance, but private pay right now.
Okay, very good. So I mentioned all of these things because Aaron may be someone that you want to connect with, and you can serve the entire state of Florida.
Yes.
All right. So telehealth, yes.
Yes, telehealth as well.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. So before we dive in, I'd like to share my disclaimer since I have a professional on in the mental health space, and that is that all topics past, present, and future on Conversations with Nicole are for informational purposes only, not to be used as a diagnosis for treatment or an answer to any personal issues related to the topic being discussed before, during, or after the program. All right, so let's dive in. Vulnerability and processing through adversity. But before we do that, hold on. I do see some more folks that have joined us. Brother Quasi, peace and blessings, family out of Atlanta. Happy Black History Month. Appreciate you being on, Quasi. And Miss Tracy Golay, who is here in Tallahassee. Thank you for joining us. And my mom. Mom is on down in Miami. Thank
Hey,
you.
Mom.
I love you. Thank
Happy
you. Thank you. All right. So let's start with this topic, vulnerability. Let's start. I think a definition would be a great place to start.
Yeah.
For the sake of this discussion, how do we want to define vulnerability?
Yes, I think for the sake of this discussion and just to simplify it, vulnerability is the ability to be able to be open and true with your emotions, and that's outside of perceptions.
Mm,
So most of the time, we spend a lot of time thinking that transparency is vulnerability,
mm.
where we're transparent and we're open about sharing information, but we're not necessarily vulnerable. So we're not giving the true emotions that may actually be behind the information that we're sharing.
Whew. All right. Ability to be open and true with your emotions. So I'm going to see if we can get the viewers involved in this. If you all don't mind, again, safe space, no judgment. We are just communicating and loving on one another.
Mhm.
How many of you, based on the definition that has been shared, feel like you are able to be vulnerable? And that is the ability to to be open and true with your emotions. How many of you feel like you're able to do that? And maybe you're not able to do that with everybody. Maybe there are certain people that you're able to do that with, but just I'm not getting into those nuances, but just do you feel like you are able to be vulnerable? Period. And whatever that looks like, are you able to? So while they are thinking, I will say I have probably struggled with this.
Mm.
I actually went to counseling today, and my counselor called me out and told me that I was suppressing, which I'm very much so offender number one of doing. And so we talked more about like how I could deal with some things, and so it resonated with me, the things that they had to say. And so I definitely need to work on my vulnerability, and that is my ability to be open and true with my emotions.
Mm. I, I think you're saying such a word, Nicole, and it's multifaceted. To say the least.
Mm,
Vulnerability is multifaceted from a
yeah.
cultural implication, societally, to our upbringing, all the things come into play in our ability to be vulnerable. And
Mhm,
I think it's so hard because we spend most of our time holding up the psychological barrier of not letting people in. It's like if I let them in too far, they'll know too much about me,
mm.
or there's going to be some point I'm going to experience pain. So we're really trying to figure out how can I avoid the pain as opposed to how can I go through this process.
So let me ask you, do you think that this kind of barrier that we put up is a defense mechanism of sorts? Maybe it's like a survival or a fight or flight technique or something? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that it can be. I won't say that it just absolutely is, but I
Mhm,
think that it can be in a sense of how we learn to build trust, how we
mm,
learn to build rapport with others, and how we really sometimes want to just be accepted. So
mm,
there's this aspect of like, I want to be accepted. I want to be able to be seen as a person that can be approved or a person that can be trustworthy.
mm,
So I want to be able to have this chance to share. But it's sometimes it's determining as we go through life, as we know, trauma comes, adversity comes, a
yes,
lot of different waves of life hit us. And when we get hit with the waves, we're drowning in this ability, these things that cause us to, like you said, suppress,
mm,
to think about, we cognitively distort things where we are, thinking irrationally, or we're starting to like catastrophize, like, oh, I'm not going to do this because this always happens. So we become even like absolutist in a
mm.
lot of ways. And it becomes difficult. So to be able to find a place where we can process is needed.
Ooh, yes, and be vulnerable.
Right.
So, what's from your perspective, what's the importance of vulnerability? Why is it important for us to be vulnerable?
Vulnerability is important because it's truly about self-awareness.
Mm,
I think when we are incredibly self-aware,
mhm,
it comes with a level of confidence to not be so worried about the perceptions of others. And I
mm,
think we spend a lot of our time living through the perceptions of others, and
mm,
that's what makes vulnerability so challenging. But it's important because self-awareness is key.
yeah,
When we can walk into a room and know exactly who we are, what we bring, and what we have to the community or the individual, it changes and shifts our approach completely, and we're able to be vulnerable without a sense of shame. And
yeah.
most of the time, it's the shame that is this overlying emotion that we're dealing with that keeps us held down from being able to share.
Whew, okay.
We might not make it all the way through this.
No, no, we ain't even halfway through the show yet. You stepping all on my toes. I'm just saying. Look, everybody being quiet tonight. Ain't nobody saying nothing. All right, let me see who we got here. Marcus in Tampa has joined us. Marcus
Hey,
Boss,
Marcus.
so much. I appreciate you. Miss Potter down in Miami. I appreciate you. Look, y'all need to be liking and sharing this thing. Y'all listen, everybody need to be on here because I know y'all are not being vulnerable and you're not being transparent in this moment, but that's okay. That's all right. I love y'all anyway. So Kesey just joined us too. Hey Kesey, she's here in Tallahassee as well. So ooh, wait a minute. Let me roll that back just a little bit. So I'm hurt over here, y'all. I really am. Aaron is hurting my feelings. I'm just saying. So self-awareness, right? We talking about that's important. It's important for you to be self-aware. It's important for you to um be able to recognize when you might be a little, off, that you out of order, right?
Right.
Okay, so so the benefits. Let's talk about the benefits of vulnerability. I mean, you mentioned self-awareness, but are there any other benefits outside of that?
Yeah. There's a lot of benefits to vulnerability. When I think about vulnerability specifically, though, I think the main benefit is the ability to heal.
Mm,
And most of the time, we are not healed the way that we need to moving into certain situations or just trying to move forward in life. So, when we're moving in a broken state, where there are pieces of us that we got scars. If you like when I was little, I'm riding a bike and you fall off your bike and you scrape your elbow or whatever it is, that thing hurt when it hits across the tar and you're like, man, that hurt. I got to get that fixed. So you wait for it to heal and you got a scar, and it takes a while for it to be able to actually heal. So I think the benefits of vulnerability is healing. And I think that we don't see that as a benefit, because healing means that you would have to have something to heal from. Pain. Right? But
So, yes, but also I think we have been programmed, if you will,
absolutely.
or taught that vulnerability is weakness.
Yes. Yeah. It's systemic, and specifically, I will say, just in the Black community, and this isn't every Black person's shared experience.
Right.
I'll say that much. However, the majority, when you look at it, vulnerability is not a conversation.
Mhm.
Mom and dad or whoever is raising you, they're not talking about, it's okay to cry. It's more so, stop crying, or else. So there's a consequence that's tied to an emotion that should be normal for us.
And
So
or else is I'll give you something to cry about.
I give you something to cry about, or
Look,
just toughen up. You
that
better,
should have been a quiz. That should have been a quiz. Like,
right?
I'll cry or else, and what
What are
comes
the
after that?
what are the Black idioms or the phrases that exist that that
Right.
have kept us held down for a long time, of like being able to actually feel? And I can just speak personally, like, and in my experience, and my dad is no longer living, but if he was, he would be laughing at me, I'm sure, right now. But he would always say, like you said, I give you something to cry about. You pull out his belt, you do all type of stuff. So these are things that I saw growing up, and that we all see, that keep us from, like, man, if I open up, that means, like, if I cry, if I just actually show how I'm really feeling, what is the consequence? So
Right.
now our mindset is, when I'm vulnerable, there's a negative consequence, and I can't be vulnerable.
So I got to pause right there, because we about to set the captives free tonight. You hear
Oh,
me?
yeah.
Listen, if y'all ever heard that growing up, that stop crying, or I'm gonna give you something to cry about, and it just shut you up, shut you down, but you still was feeling all of the feelings up in your body, and you still are making decisions based on that.
Mm,
We need some healing. We need some vulnerability right now. I'm just saying. We need to be healed, y'all.
yeah.
Your voice matters. What you had to say matters. You can cry. It's okay. You have our permission. It's all
Mhm.
right to release it. Let it go. Whew. All right. Hold on. We got a
Thanks for
few
that
people.
moment. Thanks for that moment. We needed that moment.
We did. We do. We do. We do. And we just don't take those moments. So
Mm,
y'all can have those moments right here on Conversations with Nicole. That's what we're here for. Sharice Du Bois, thank you for being here. My good friend in Atlanta. Dr. Kendra Mitchell, thank you for being here. Appreciate you. We're talking vulnerability, y'all, and processing through adversity. Vulnerability and processing through adversity. And for the sake of our conversation, when we're talking about vulnerability, we're talking about the ability to be open and true with your emotions, to be open and to be true with your emotions. So Marcus said vulnerability is a scary place when you understand you trusted the wrong person with your valuable information or feelings. Ooh, yes, it is.
mhm.
It is. It is. It is. It
That's
is.
possible as well, too, in and of itself, of who can I be vulnerable with?
Yeah. So, do you have any thoughts around that?
I do.
Okay.
Um, plenty. I think learning, first, putting yourself in a place where you give yourself permission to be vulnerable. Like we've been talking about, most of the time we don't have that permission to be vulnerable. And especially growing up in, a Black family, or just a non-white family. I'm not saying that all families are like that, but we know sometimes we have a common experience that's shared.
Mhm.
we are adultified. So we kind of grow up quicker than what we should have based on the responsibilities, based on the things that we learn. We just have tough skin, if you would, or whatever it may be. Our experiences are different culturally. But I think it's scary because trust is a choice every day. You know, you could think you know somebody for 20 years or however it may be, and you know, they turn around and you gave them some information, or you shared something really personal with them, and they either use it against you or they've been sharing it with your friends. That begins to dilute, or it begins to diminish our ability to trust. So we're really talking about, like, how do we rebuild trust when we experience pain? You
Yeah.
know, how
Yeah.
do we also approach the situation with wisdom, knowing that this pain that I experience is also inevitable? We're not just thinking about that all the time,
Mm.
because when you are close with somebody, nobody wants to experience that. But that's just the reality of managing tension of relationship, is that no matter how close you are with somebody, eventually you will run into a conflict.
Very true. No, it's a good point. My freshman brother Ishmael Rents is on out of Gainesville. He said, "I'll give you something to cry about. Had a good purpose when it was just a bunch of whining and noise making with fake crying."
Right.
So I can relate to that as well. Ish. So thank you, Touche. Thank you for bringing that into balance. All right. Dr. K said, "I have been giving myself permission to feel, question, make mistakes, learn a newfound freedom."
Mm,
Yes.
mm. I
Love
love
it.
that, Dr. Mitchell. Love that. That in and of itself has so much power. Just
Mm,
being able to check in on yourself and say, what are areas where others are having control over my life that I don't have control over myself, or permission, to just
yeah.
feel, to just feel and think through an experience that
Mm,
may have jaded us, may have caused us to generalize a certain experience. What are areas that I need to explore to just feel those feelings and not push them to the side?
mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. That's good. I think too that there's this fear of being wrong.
Mm. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it. Oof. My mind is going when you said that. It's because that is such another dynamic that's at play, Nicole. Just this reality of, you feel this weight and this pressure of always maybe having to be right. You're fighting a duality of systemic issues that have existed alongside moving in your current existence in the present, trying to say, I have to navigate this in such a way, because if I'm wrong, or if I look a certain way, then that means that biases, perspectives start to look that way for others as well. So I think that there's this invisible weight that we carry, that we hold on to, that we may not necessarily talk about, but it's there. And it's this aspect of, I have to perform. If I perform well, then just maybe the possibility of my whatever, you name it, can become my reality. And I think Western society pushes that we have to be excellent. And I think we know that, but it's just this pressure that we feel. And specifically, I think as Black folks, we navigate this in a totally different lens than
Yeah.
many others. And I think this pressure to be right comes from this place of trying to, and there's a, we say that the phrase or the idiom, maybe keep up with the Joneses, but there's a small voice in our head that's saying we need to be better. And it's this comparative place of never really actually being okay with ourselves.
Mm,
We're trying to be things that we were probably never created to be,
mm,
or trying to do things that we maybe have no business doing,
mm,
but we've been pushed along to say, you go for it, go do this. So when we don't have clarity, that aspect of, like, our self-awareness, we begin to feel this need of even more. So I need to be right about these certain things too. And I'm not saying we don't need to be right
right,
about,
right, right.
but I'm also saying there is a weight that we carry that we don't always address or talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's powerful. Um, the weight of being right all the time.
Mm, mm.
Hmm.
And it's such a, I think it's to a stronger extent in society today,
Mm.
because we're living in a time where we are the most like over informed,
Mm.
but but we are also not committed. So we get all the information and we're trying to process and move forward. So everything is moving really, really fast
Hmm.
in our world, and the ability to actually slow down and just take a step back and check in is something that should be a regular, for us.
Yeah, no, that's good. Kendra said being excellent 24/7 is a trauma response.
Yeah.
It's okay to just be sometimes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I absolutely agree. And I think, Kendra, to what you're saying, Dr. Mitchell, just this reality of contentment. And when you have that self-awareness of, I don't have to perform, I don't have to look a certain way, I can step into whatever space,
Yeah.
authentically me. And I think authenticity is the big thing that we learn when we're able to be okay with just being, as
Mm,
opposed to having to be something else.
absolutely. So Marcus said the weight of being wrong. Is this a thing? Yeah, I think the weight of being wrong and the weight of being right. And I think the weight of being wrong really goes it's like the reverse side. It's like the other side of that coin.
Hmm.
A lot of people, well, I say a lot of people, some people um struggle with not being wrong. Like to be wrong is just like this catastrophic thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I can absolutely agree. There's a pendulum that exists. So on both sides, right, where it's this weight of being wrong, but also this weight of being right, which is
Mhm.
like screaming like anxiety of trying to control both sides, of like I have to control these things. And there's a, in the I work also alongside my local church doing development,
Mhm.
and we talk a lot about the shadow side of things, and everything kind of has a shadow side that we don't think about. So,
Yeah.
there's this other side of the pillow that
Mhm.
exists, and we carry both of those. So there's a pendulum that we're constantly trying to work through and manage tension with.
Absolutely. So we are a little more than halfway through our talk. For those of you who are just tuning in, I am on with Mr. Aaron Tillman. We are talking about vulnerability and processing through adversity. Processing through adversity. So, how many of you all are feeling adversity on this February 3rd, 2025? How many of you are feeling adversity either in the household, on the job, in society, in your relationships? How many of you are feeling adversity? Maybe some of the things that you are watching on the news or on your devices. Let us know. Again, no judgment, safe space. Let us know in the comments if you're feeling adversity, feeling the weight of adversity at this particular moment in time. So I have talked to a number of people, I will say, that are really kind of stressing over some of the recent policy changes or proposed policy changes in our world. And so I want to encourage folks to really kind of focus on the things that matter to them most. And not in a stressful way, but in a loving way.
Mm,
Okay. In a loving way. And I think really now more than ever, and I've been saying this since the day after election in last November,
mhm.
we're gonna need community now more than ever.
Yep.
And so the community that we currently have, and then creating some other communities. And so we need to be seeking that out on a daily. And we need to be tapping into our spiritual wellness, whatever that looks like for you. Because that is what's going to ground us and keep us through these vulnerable times.
that's a that's a good way to put it. It's a good way to put it. That vulnerability is exposure, and we are we are exposed. I think we're living, and I won't say um, this is a unique time in a way where everything is happening at once, and I
Mm,
think there are multiple calamities that are being captured in this current state uh,
mhm,
of our world. So I think what you're saying, Nicole, is so like integral. Being able to be in community, being able to have a deeper place of self-awareness to understand, what's happening in this world. How does this impact me? But
mhm,
the real challenge is how am I allowing space for curiosity and not just judgment? And I think that is a unique challenge where even though there are so many adversities, allowing myself to feel every single aspect of how this impacts me, uh,
mhm,
how am I being curious to be able to still pave a way for those that are going behind me? And how am I moving forward in a way where I'm impacting and I'm thinking about, intergenerationally, um, how I'm touching both sides because it's moving quickly. There's so much that's happening, and most of the time the narrative is just it's so there's so many, and we can't act like it doesn't exist. It's a reality, and I think if we're naive to say that it doesn't, you can turn on any news outlet, and you can do anything. But the reality of it is that we definitely have to find community. We definitely have to find a place where we can talk through some of these things and
mhm.
really explore our perceptions. And I think that's a big thing too, is like our perceptions, our worldviews. How are decisions? We'll talk about DEI because look, you said it, and I'm gonna say it as well too, because it's something that cannot be erased. You can take away words, right? We can use any words we want to use, but you can't remove people. you know
Mhm.
you can't remove people. You can't remove the reality of what people represent when it comes to diversity that is to be appreciated, that is
Right.
to be acknowledged, that is to be loved upon and learned about.
Mhm. Absolutely. All right. We got a few more folks that have joined us. Light of Serenity said it's heavy right now.
Saw
Yes, it
that.
is.
Mm.
Yes, it is. All right. My cousin Nora in Virginia. Thank you for being here, Nora. She said definitely from watching the news. So,
Mm.
yes, 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 yes. Marcus said, I'm carrying family and friends with health issues. Giving strength, faith, and hope is very tiring. I can
Mm.
imagine that it is. But I
Yeah.
stay positive and prayerful on their behalf. Nice. Thank you for sharing, Marcus.
Yeah.
And we also have Mr. Ozzy Daniel on with us. He is a clinician in the Virginia Beach area. Thank you for being here, Ozzy. So, how do we process through the adversity? How do we process through this adversity?
I think there's so many different ways that we can, but I
Hmm.
think it's going to come back to this aspect of self-awareness because everyone is going to process it differently. You
Right.
know, I could say, someone may need to journal and really just write down their thoughts and see, how am I perceiving what's happening? How is this in relation to my own experience, my identities that I hold, my orientation, my worldview? I think that there are a lot of different elements to be considered,
Mhm.
and how we can process it.
Yeah.
But I think one way that I do think about is the concept of parts of self,
Mm.
right? So, hey, mom, my mom is on too.
Hey, hey, how you doing?
I think that there are so many different aspects of us and how we learn to process. And
Mm,
I think about the parts of self. So one part is the wounded part.
mm, mhm,
And that's the inner child, and this is the part that talks about pain. It talks about fear, unmet needs and expectations of our past experiences. And it shows up in different places. So when we're processing through the wounded part,
mhm,
sometimes we'll hear the saying could be, I didn't deserve this.
mm,
And
mm,
because I didn't deserve this, now you owe me because of my pain.
mm,
So we begin to put the pressure upon society because of our
mhm.
own inability to be
Right.
able to see how our personal experience impacts our perception.
Mhm.
So you have different parts where, like, even the protective part where, like, we talked about this defensive aspect that comes up where our pain creates like emotional walls, like you ain't getting in here.
Right.
So what could be happening right now is that we see what's happening in our world, and we might be putting up this protector where it's like, I need to shield myself from any sort of pain that I might experience.
Mm,
And this, what's happening in the world, we
mhm,
are psychologically processing that and saying, how do we position ourselves to not experience that?
mm,
But that in and of itself is something where that it's the reality of people making decisions that are not beneficial and that could potentially cause pain is
mhm.
inevitable. But the reality of how we can process that, we can take time to ourselves to do those. So there are many ways, but that is one way that in particular, when I'm working with clients and that I'm thinking about all these other elements, is how do we get to the foundation and the core of this, of your family of origin,
Yeah.
your own personal experiences or parts that are feel disconnected, to better integrate you as a person, because we live disintegrated most of the time.
Mm,
So we live in a place where we don't feel whole approaching a situation. So if pain or if calamity is occurring, then it's just further separating us from who we actually are. And we have to learn to be able to integrate ourselves that we may have missed.
whew. This heavy. All right. We got a few more folks that are commenting and joined us. Florida Coco Brown said, I love the curious part. Let's be
Yes.
curious instead of furious. I love that.
The word
Yes,
for
it is.
Coco Brown.
It
Mhm.
is. It is. My son, my favorite son, is checking in from Brooklyn. Happy Monday. Love you, JB. All right. And Dr. K said, exactly. I don't stay glued to the news. Someone else might find it useful. I feel you. Me either. And your mom said, doing great. Thank you both for the conversation. Much needed. We appreciate you being on here. So I think, with the processing through the adversity part, like it is definitely work. And it can be draining, it can be heavy, but it's needful, right?
Right.
For that healing that we desire so that we can be our best selves and be better than we are now.
Yeah. It's
Mhm.
it's such a it's such a necessary aspect. And I think it's hard for us to find that sense of our place to heal, because most of the time we view ourselves sometimes like others view us, and we
Mm,
already come from a place of a deficit sometimes, so we're thinking, oh, I'm not worthy of healing.
mhm.
I'm not valued enough to be able to actually have this.
Yeah.
So we're approaching it from a deficit lens, and other people are already looking at us from that same lens. So it feels like there's no place for us. So we begin to isolate as opposed to like actually going to seek it.
Yeah. And I think too, which I'm a big proponent of, I mean, that's why we do Mindset Monday and Wellness Wednesday.
Yes.
Connect with the professional.
Yeah.
Connect with somebody that can help you navigate through all of that,
Mhm.
because we will grab one piece of it and start ruminating and
Yes.
keep playing the same record over and over and over and over and over again in our heads. and we could have put that in the wrong mental box in our mind. A whole lot of things could have happened. So seek professional help.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm just going to copy what you just said, because seek professional help. I think the other part of it is sometimes we don't feel like we can, when we're in a place where we know we should.
Yeah.
It's like the to-do list. We'll get to it when we need to.
Mhm.
But, our mental health is critical. It is pivotal, foundational of how we're operating and how we're seeing the world, how we are
Mhm.
seeing ourselves. So the I've heard it this way, your body is your business. And if
Mm.
you're not taking care of your body, you're not taking care of your business.
I love that. All right, that's good.
Yeah.
Shantina just joined us. She said she'll have to catch the replay. That's all right, but appreciate you commenting and letting us know you here. Marcus, he said there were times I desired an apology, but probably didn't get it.
Receive it. Yeah.
Yeah, I learned to let go and accept it. There would be no closure.
Mm.
So I think, and I struggle with this one a little bit too, Marcus, and have had this conversation with my counselor, because my whole thing is like, just let's talk about it, and if we come to a, an agreement or decide we don't want to engage with one another anymore, that's fine.
Mhm.
But as I was kind of talking to my counselor about, it's like people have difficult times with what would be, I guess, labeled as challenging or confrontational conversations, right? Where maybe they anticipate there'll be a disagreement or a break in the fellowship or whatever the case may be. But I don't know. To me, it's just all part of the human experience, right?
Yeah, and you're right, Nicole. I think it's a part of our experience, but I think closure is difficult because of how are we defining closure? I think closure often is looked at as maybe we should have some sort of peace
Mm.
when, the situation is quote unquote, resolved or finished. We should have some sort of feeling where we know it is, or someone, like you mentioned, Marcus, you needed an apology and didn't get that apology. So there may have been some sort of maybe bitterness or whatever you might have been wrestling with that like welled up.
Right.
And in your mind, you were saying like, this person might owe me, or I need to get this to be able to feel this way. So I
Mm.
think ultimately closure sometimes looks like a feeling or feels like a feeling. And, it's defined differently based on how some people might see like you said, the acceptance part of it, where you're grieving whatever happened that you don't feel like should have happened. And then once it's done, or y'all no longer communicate, or whatever the situation may be, closure might have been just we parted ways,
Yeah.
and I accepted what it was. But I think that's a question to think about, is like, how do we define closure, and
Mm.
what are we expecting that may be unrealistic, because we often see others as we are, as opposed to as they are.
Mm.
So we want them, Nicole, if I hurt you, and emotionally, you know, you might be like, well, he needs to apologize. He needs to do this and this and that, because that's what I would do.
Right.
But we have to see them as they are. And if they show us who they are, it might actually be a little scary, but we can accept the authenticity of who they actually are and be
You
able to move forward.
you sound like my counselor. 'Cause I'm trying to this is your sister?
That is my sister. Love you too, sis.
Alright. My counselor's like I was like, "I just wanna have a conversation. Let's just talk about it." And they was like, "Okay, and so you talk about it, and if they don't have nothing to say, then what?"
Right. It leaves you at a point where you feel kind of at a blank, where how do I move forward in the dissonance, right? Where it's like this person gave me nothing, and it's this gray that I'm now trying to navigate and figure out. And what you're saying is super important, because what we're really looking for is meaning. The question we should be asking, like, is what does this mean to me? What would this apology do for
What?
me?
That is exactly the question my counselor said.
Yeah.
What's that gonna do for you?
What would it do for you if you received that apology, or if you received what you feel was owed to you? So the debt you created,
The
yeah,
closure.
is really causing you the pain that you might be experiencing, as opposed to the actual act or behavior that you experience in your friendship.
Right. Good question.
That was a great question. Yeah.
Dr. K said the closure was my healing and change of my midday mindset. I think maybe she just said mindset. Um, all right. We got Miss Brittany on with us. Thank you for joining us, Brittany. Riche is here. Hey, Riche. Thank you for being here. And Dr. K, she said, that's it. I believe in that wholeheartedly. We have to make a decision. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. We got Eduardo Williams on with us as well, who was here in Tally. Thank you so much. All right. Florida Coco Brown said, our ego and pride will get us every time. I want to be justified. Listen,
Yes, absolutely. And we do. And I think that
it's the principle of the thing. You know,
the
principle. It's the principle.
it is. And then those are aspects of, who we are that also should be explored. But we are coming to relationships and interacting with people based off of our own experiences. So, and sometimes it's our experiences and our upbringing, most of the time in our family, that drives our interactions and our behavior. So if you related to a certain person, you might be expecting that same sort of thing, because this is just what I'm used to, as opposed to this is what this relationship actually is.
Yeah. Miss Melicia's on. Thank you for being here, Bougie Boo. And mom said it is a mindset that is hard to change sometimes at any age. Amen. Very true.
Yep. And I think we talked about counseling earlier and seeking counseling, and I think generationally we touched on it. Like generationally, these aren't things that were being given, or we didn't have the tools, and we didn't have the terminology to be able to articulate this emotional need that we had. We just knew that we had our communities. And we could talk about it sometimes, and sometimes we didn't talk about it. We just weren't going to talk about difficult things. That's reality.
Yeah, for sure. Marcus says sometimes an apology brings relief to the person hurting.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna give you this homework, Marcus, that my counselor gave me, and that was to write hurt letters. So if you are the person that's hurting, write a letter to the person that you believe hurt you about the hurt.
Yep.
And you can choose to either give them the letter, or you can burn it or tear it up, or whatever the case may be. But at least you will have gotten it out.
Yeah. And that's so important, to be able to put it into your words, what that means, that experience, even if you're not able to have a, verbal conversation with them, or in speaking terms, whatever it may be, to be able to have a place where you can process. And I think, Nicole, that's just good practice in general, to be able to have a place where we can just write out our thoughts and process our day. Because you think about how many interactions and things that are happening to you, as opposed to you happening to it. The world is kind of happening to you in a lot of ways. So
for sure,
having a place we can process and write down is so important.
Absolutely. I feel like we only touch the surface. Really, just really doing. You stepped all on my feet, my toes sore, Aaron Tillman, because you really hurt me tonight with all of this talk. Was there something else as we get ready to try to wrap this thing on up that you wanted to say about processing adversity?
I think that there's so much to be said, and I think as we are approaching wanting to Marcus, I love that. We might need a part two.
Scratching like a cat. Y'all need a part two. Malicia said we need a part two.
we
Everybody.
might need a part two. I think when you're processing through adversity, it comes back to this level of self-awareness: is how do you process? What does processing look like to you? And not only finding the space, but seeking professional care where you can actually walk through your experiences in a safe and confidential and really vulnerable environment, where you can learn to expose yourself, and not expose yourself obviously to everyone, but in a place where healing can take place. And I think how you do that might look different, but I think being intentional with actually scheduling a session, being intentional with actually doing the research, I think it's something that can be talked about a lot. It's like, I use the dishes, for example, dishes might sit in the sink for a little bit. And I know I got to do these dishes, at some point, or else they'll just sit there to clean this house or whatever it may be, because it is important to me. And if our well-being is truly important to us and we value it as much as we say we do, then we would seek support to be able to process, and I think there's many ways to process this, but seeking professional support is key.
Indeed. Okay. All right. So if you all will just go with me, tell me something that you got from this talk tonight. I know y'all talking about a part two and some of y'all came on late, but whatever you caught, let us know in the comments something that you got from tonight's conversation about vulnerability and processing through adversity. Give us one little nugget, one gem that you got from tonight in the comments. Let us know. Your mom said, awesome, touching topic. Thank you both. Love you, my kind of baby boy. That's so sweet.
Thanks, Mom.
So sweet. All right, let us know in the comments what you get. We talked about self-awareness. We talked about healing. I got my notes here. We talked about the parts of self, the wounded parts, right? Trust is a choice every day. That's a mic drop right there in and of itself.
Right.
And the invisible weight that we carry of both being wrong and being right. Yes. All right. So we get some some comments. And Marcus, you know what? Thank you, Marcus Boston. Like, share, subscribe to Conversations with Nicole. Absolutely. Everybody needs to do that. Everybody needs to do that for sure. All right. Therapy is healthy. Yes, Coco Brown. Thank you. And Coco dropped some gems too. What was that, Coco?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know.
Earlier.
The curious part. Let's be curious instead of furious. Yes. I got to write that one down.
Talking about ego and pride as well too, and things that get in the way.
Yes. All right. Riche, you can't expect a character trait that people don't have just because you have it. Ooh, ain't that the truth? That is so true.
Oh, that's my sister. I like the name. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my sister.
All right. Tracy, a hurt letter. This is something an offender might consider also. Yeah. I don't know if they're gonna be doing that, but it might. It might.
Yeah.
Shantina, seek professional help when needed. Yes, thank you for that. Malicia, accept people where they are, not where I think they should be. So I think that resonated with some folks. Yes. So you want to have that conversation. They don't necessarily want to have a conversation. You trying to get closer. They,
Yeah.
they done moved on.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, is that, as much as we make it about them, in trying to reconcile with them, we really need to reconcile with ourselves.
That part.
We got to
That
reconcile with ourselves, and when we realize, the experience and how we can control what we can control and not try to control someone else's response or reaction, I think we can really start to heal.
Whew, my Lord. All right. All right. Can wrap this thing on up.
We're gonna get through it, Nicole.
I'm hurt over here. I'm hurt. Tell the people how they can connect with you, and please, you already dropped the mic. So yes, please tell the folks how they can connect with you.
Absolutely. I tried to put my info in the chat, and it's there on the banner as well too. But you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Psychology Today. You can just search Aaron Tillman. On Twitter at atilly0805, and then also on Instagram at Aaron J. Tillman. You can find me there, and I'm looking forward to connecting with y'all. If you message me, I will message back, and love to be able to start a conversation and talk through even more so some of the things that we talked through tonight, or even help you get connected with the provider if you're seeking counseling support.
All right, very good. Well, I hope this has been beneficial to you all. I see my mom said closure may not be what we expected. What we expect, absolutely. Marcus is laughing. It's all right. Good stuff tonight. Thank you, Ozzy. Coco, yes, much needed. Great conversation with you both. Appreciate you so much. Coco. So again, for those of you who are new to the platform, I gotta invite you to subscribe to Conversations with Nicole on YouTube. We are live here on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Focus on mental health and wellness in Black and Brown communities specifically, and trying to encourage us to get our checkup from the neck up and be our best selves. All right. Go to counseling, go to therapy. Please, please, please. And Aaron is a counselor right here in Tallahassee, serving the entire state of Florida, and he is taking new clients. So check him out. And he's going to be at our Black Men's Mental Health event on February 23rd at FAMU Grand Ballroom, Sunday, February 23rd, 2:30 p.m. So all of the Black men's, Black and brown men's in the area, y'all need to register and come be a part of that event. So this has been a great conversation. Let's see. Mom said I had never heard of a hurt letter. I like that. Okay, thank you. Good. Glad you like that one. Outstanding broadcast. Thank you, Marcus. We appreciate you. All right, good people. Listen, we will be back on here on Wednesday. Takia Joseph out of Jacksonville. She's a clinician. We will be talking about Black women and community. So you definitely want to be part of that conversation. So thank you, Aaron. Great conversation. I'm a little bruised, but go bandage myself up and go turn in, and hopefully it'll be better tomorrow.
I think we'll be all right. We all processed a little bit. So thank you, Nicole, so much. This was amazing being able to have this conversation.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate your engagement. Great engagement tonight. We appreciate y'all, and we'll see y'all next time. Have a good night.
Bye, y'all.